That thing you do when someone gets too close. When you apologize for existing. When, in the middle of a crisis, you become cold, automatic, almost robotic. What if it wasn't a quirk of your personality? What if it was a scar? Why does your body keep reacting as if the danger never left? Why does rest make you feel guilty and chaos feel familiar? Stay. Because what seems normal might just be survival in disguise. You do it almost without realizing it. You apologize before speaking. You apologize for asking. You apologize for taking a seat, for needing help, for simply being there. Sorry, can I? Sorry to bother you. Sorry, it's silly. It's not politeness. It's not kindness. It's something much deeper. This behavior has a name in psychology: fawning, a trauma response. It's the fourth F, along with fight, flight, and freeze. When you couldn't escape danger and confronting it wasn't an option, your brain learned another strategy: to become small, compliant, invisible. To be what the danger needed you to be to survive. A child who learns that expressing needs causes anger stops having needs. An adult who learned that speaking brings punishment learns to apologize even before opening their mouth. And even though the danger isn't there today, your nervous system continues to act as if every interaction is a potential threat. Your boss isn't the one who hurt you. The person in front of you isn't your aggressor. But your body doesn't know that. For your nervous system, the past is still happening. That's why you shrink. That's why you lower your voice. That's why you dim your light before someone else does it for you. And yes, it's exhausting. Living life apologizing just for being human, for breathing, for existing. Not because you're weak, but because at the time, that was the safest way to stay alive. When everything falls apart, you don't. An accident, a flood, an unexpected call, a sudden loss. While others panic, you activate. You think clearly. You make decisions. You call who needs to be called. You do what needs to be done. People tell you you're strong, that you're imperturbable, that you handle pressure very well. But there's an uncomfortable truth behind that calm. You're not calm because you're zen. You're calm because chaos feels familiar. For many people, an emergency is exceptional. For you, it's familiar territory. Your nervous system was formed in crisis. It learned to function when everything was unstable, unpredictable, dangerous. That's why, in extreme situations, your body doesn't get rattled. It's been there before. Your brain has already lived through the worst possible scenario. And when the worst reappears, it knows exactly what to do. The problem is the price you pay for that. Because that same mind that can handle a 5-alarm fire can crumble if someone slightly raises their voice or suddenly changes their tone. It's not inconsistent. It's trauma. Your window of tolerance isn't normal. At times it's immensely wide. At others, dangerously fragile. You shouldn't have to be so good at surviving. It's not admirable. It's sad. It means your body learned too early that constant alertness was the only way to stay safe. And that permanent state of alert, even if it saves you in crises today, is one of the profound reasons why you live exhausted. You have things saved just in case. Food you'll probably never eat. Spare chargers. Duplicate items. Money hidden in strange places. Not because you're prepared, but because a part of you lives with the constant fear of running out of everything. Without resources, without support, without security. This isn't about organization or being prepared. It's about a deep sense of scarcity. When at some point in your life something essential was missing, food, stability, affection, protection, your brain learned a clear lesson. Never run out again. Psychologists call it resource guarding. Animals develop it when they've been hungry. Humans when they've been abandoned. You're not greedy. You're scared. That hidden bill doesn't represent money. It represents control. It represents the illusion that if everything breaks again, At least you'll have something in your hands. Something that allows you to resist a little longer. The irony is cruel. The more you accumulate, the less safe you feel. Because the danger is no longer outside. It's inside. It's that alarm that never turns off, that nervous system that keeps waiting for the next disaster. And no object, no reserve, no emergency plan can completely calm it. That's why you keep saving. Not to live better, but to feel less helpless. Even if that sense of security never fully arrives, someone offers you help and, instead of relief, you feel tension. You start mentally calculating how to return the favor. When? How? At what price? If someone invites you for coffee, you make a mental note. If they lend a hand, you feel like you've just signed an invisible debt. It's not gratitude, it's vigilance. Your brain learned that help was never free, that it came with conditions, reproaches, manipulation, or guilt. It learned that accepting something meant being exposed, vulnerable, at a disadvantage. So now it interprets kindness as a trap. Every kind gesture is a Trojan horse. Every favor, a future obligation. That's why you prefer to do everything alone, to carry more than you can, to say I'm fine, even when you're not. Because at least that way, no one can remind you that you owe them something. At least that way you maintain an illusion of control, of independence, of security. What's most painful is that genuine kindness exists. There are people who help without asking for anything in return. But your nervous system can't believe it. Not because you're distrustful, but because once, trusting had consequences. So you reject help not out of pride, but out of fear. And that fear, sustained day after day, also weighs heavily. It weighs as much as all the things you carry alone, without allowing anyone to carry them with you. There's no middle ground. You either share too much too soon, or you share nothing at all. You meet someone new, and within minutes, they already know your story, your wounds, your deepest fears, as if throwing out your pain is the only way to create a real bond. Or you do the opposite. You've been with people for years who know almost nothing about you, not even the basics. You become an emotional safe. This isn't a character eccentricity, it's a trauma response. When you never learned what healthy boundaries are, your attachment system gets out of whack. Oversharing is born from a desperate need for connection. From the hope that if someone sees all your pain at once, maybe they'll stay. Maybe they'll understand. Maybe they won't leave. Closing everything off, on the other hand, is born from a harder lesson. Vulnerability is dangerous. If opening up once ended in betrayal, humiliation, or abandonment, your mind built a fortress. High walls, closed doors. No one enters, no one sees, no one can hurt you again. Both extremes are exhausting. Both lead to the same loneliness. Because authentic connection doesn't happen in either. It happens in the space in between. In sharing little by little, in feeling safe as you show yourself, in regulating how much you give and how much you keep. The problem is that you were never taught that middle ground. So you go from one extreme to the other, searching for a closeness you don't know how to sustain. Not because you're incapable of love, but because you learn to survive before you learn to connect. You push people to see if they'll stay. You unconsciously provoke arguments. You suddenly go silent to see if someone will look for you. You pull away just to see if the other person fights to remain. From the outside, it might seem contradictory, even harmful. But it's not toxicity, it's terror. When all the people who were supposed to stay ended up leaving, your brain created a brutal protection system, a kind of emotional quality control. An internal voice that whispers, "Let me hurt them first before they hurt me." Another that insists, "Let's see if this one will abandon me too." Thus, a self-fulfilling prophecy is born. You set impossible tests. You demand constant signals. You stretch the rope until someone gets tired and leaves. And at that moment your mind says, "See? I was right. No one stays." But it wasn't true. They didn't leave because you weren't worthy of love. They left because they were exhausted. Deep down, you're convinced that you're not enough, that sooner or later, everyone will see something flawed in you and leave. So you recreate abandonment before it happens, because at least that way it hurts a little less. At least this time, you feel like you're in control. The tragic thing is that, in that process, you sometimes push away people who genuinely could have stayed. People who didn't need tests, just security. But your fear spoke louder. Not because you're cruel, but because your nervous system still lives in a past where loving meant losing. Resting makes you uncomfortable. Sitting doing nothing makes you nervous. Trying to relax doesn't calm you. It activates anxiety. Even a single day off can make you feel useless, unproductive, as if you're failing at something important. You're not a workaholic. You're running from something. For many survivors, stillness was never safe. When you stopped moving, thoughts caught up to you, emotions surfaced, memories began to peek around the edges, so you learned to stay busy. Always doing. Always moving forward. Always tired. Productivity became your anesthesia. Exhaustion, your proof of worth. When you were younger, perhaps you only received recognition when you performed. Perhaps being still made you vulnerable. Perhaps silence was dangerous. Your brain registered everything. And now, even when your body begs for a break, your mind screams louder. Keep going, don't stop. Moving is surviving. That's why resting feels like a threat. As if slowing down could open a door you've kept closed for years. It's not a lack of discipline. It's self-protection. Your nervous system still believes that if you stop, something terrible will catch up to you. And living like that, without permission to stop, is deeply draining. Not because you're weak, but because you've been functioning in survival mode for too long. Someone looks you in the eyes for an extra second, and something inside you contracts. It's not just shyness. It's not social awkwardness. It's a visceral feeling, as if you're exposed, naked, as if that person could see all the cracks you're trying to hide. It churns your stomach. It forces you to look away. They say the eyes are the window to the soul, and when the soul has been invaded, wounded, or betrayed, you learn to close the curtains. Many people who have experienced trauma develop what is known as gaze aversion. Looking directly into someone's eyes requires vulnerability. It requires trust. It requires a sense of security that, at some point, was taken from you. If in the past being seen meant being judged, controlled, or hurt, your nervous system learned to avoid that exposure at all costs. You're not being impolite. You're not hiding something. You're protecting yourself. Because the last time someone truly looked at you, it wasn't to take care of you. Looking away is a silent way to keep yourself safe. To not offer more than you can. To preserve an internal space that was unprotected for a long time. It's not a social flaw. It's a learned response. And even though you're no longer in danger today, your body still acts as if you are. Because for the nervous system, safety is not measured in words, but in experiences. Sometimes you look in the mirror and something doesn't quite fit. You see your reflection, but you don't fully recognize yourself. For a fleeting instant, a question crosses your mind. Who is that person? You feel disconnected from your own body, as if you're just piloting it from afar, as if you haven't fully inhabited yourself. This is called dissociation. It's not madness. It's not strangeness. It's your brain's emergency ejector seat. When reality became too painful, when being present meant suffering more than you could bear, your consciousness learned to pull away, to leave a little, to disconnect just enough to keep functioning. Your body remembers what your mind tries to forget. As Bessel van der Kolk wrote, the body keeps the score. And sometimes that body feels like a place you don't want to return to, because it holds experiences that were never safely processed. So you separate from it. You observe it from the outside. You keep your distance. You're not broken. You're adapted. Your brain did exactly what it needed to do to keep you alive. Dissociation was not a conscious choice. It was an emergency solution, a form of protection when there was no other way out. But now the danger is no longer there. And perhaps, just perhaps, the time has come to slowly return. To carefully re-inhabit yourself. To recognize yourself again, not as someone flawed, but as someone who survived when they shouldn't have had to. If you've recognized yourself in several of these behaviors, there's nothing wrong with you. You're not flawed, you're not weak, you're not overreacting. You are someone who learned to survive in an environment where feeling safe was not a constant option. Each of these habits, however uncomfortable they may be today, had a clear function at the time. They protected you. They kept you going when there was no other alternative. The problem isn't that your nervous system reacted that way. The problem is that it continues to react the same way when the danger is no longer present. Your body doesn't distinguish between past and present if it was never taught that it's safe to let down your guard now. That's why you repeat patterns you no longer need. That's why you get so tired. That's why you sometimes feel like you're living on autopilot. Recognizing these responses isn't a condemnation, it's a starting point. Naming them is beginning to separate yourself from them. Not to force yourself to change, but to understand yourself with more compassion. Because healing isn't about erasing the past, but about teaching your body that it no longer has to live in war. You're not failing by reacting this way. You are remembering. And little by little, you can learn something new. That today, here and now, you no longer have to survive to deserve to exist.